And joining us now, Jake Tapper, anchor of The Lead and State of the Union. And boy, Jake, I'm just looking at your lineup this weekend. What a lineup. Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders, and Marco Rubio all on one big shoe.
Yeah, that's right. We got a good show coming up on Sunday. We're very excited.
Well, that's very good. Well, let's turn immediately to the big story yesterday in the world of politics, and that had to be the testimony of Hillary Clinton before the Benghazi committee. 11 hours of testimony. What did we learn? What has changed?
Well, according to Chairman Gowdy, he said after the hearing that she didn't give any answers that were different from ones that she'd given in the past. I think there are some new tidbits of information that came out, including these emails to her family and contemporaneous notes taken in a conversation with the Egyptian Prime Minister, suggesting that early on she thought that it was a terrorist attack and it was not tied to the video. But in terms of big revelations, yes, I ordered the code red. I didn't hear anything in terms of anything that I thought would change the game, change the narrative about what happened at Benghazi and why this remains an issue. I do think Congressman Peter Roskam early on in the hearing was talking about the policy in Libya as a failed policy in his view, and how he kept hammering at the fact that, according to emails, it seemed like Clinton wanted to take credit for the policy when it was not perceived as a failure. But that didn't teach me anything new. What about you?
Well, I think you're right about the stuff that had to do with the letter, the email that she sent to her daughter and to the family, that it was actually a terrorist attack. At the same time that they were releasing a statement at the State Department that said that it had something to do with that YouTube video. So I think that was the most interesting.
Her answer to that is that
it
that
was
there was
fluid,
a lot of conflicting information, and she to this day still thinks that the video played a role. So I don't know. I mean, it is interesting that was where she was a lot more definitive early on, but she does have an answer. So I guess all I'm saying.
The other thing that I thought was interesting was all the stuff about Sid Blumenthal, which is a lot of he had unfettered access, and the point was made that Ambassador Stevens apparently did not.
Yeah, I mean, I think that point was made clear, but by the same token, I don't know. I mean, politically or policy-wise, the significance of it in terms of if the purpose of the hearing is what can we do better, what's the best way for us to proceed forward? Were things hidden from the American people? I don't know what the Sid Blumenthal stuff gets you. I'm willing to listen and hear theories, but the fact that Sid Blumenthal has been an advisor to the Clintons, and he is who he is, that to me isn't new, and it doesn't seem to be compelling to the American people. It might be interesting for us in Washington.
Well, I think it went to, Jake, and again, this is something that I did learn. I didn't realize that there were upwards to 600 requests for security upgrades in Libya made by the ambassador, and not one of them made it to the eyes or the desk of the Secretary of State. I think the comparison between the actual ambassador in the hottest of hot zones in Libya asking for more security, she didn't get that information. But anytime Sidney Blumenthal needed something or wanted to bounce an idea off of her about Libya, that went straight to the Secretary of State.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point. I mean, I've been reporting on the unmet security requests. I don't think it was all 600 were made by Chris Stevens, but certainly there were hundreds made by people in Libya, including Chris Stevens. And it certainly, I've been reporting on this since October 2012, the requests made, and I still don't understand fully. And I said this to her a week ago. I still don't fully understand why those requests weren't met. And she put it on security professionals and with me, and she put it on security professionals with the committee yesterday. And I do agree. But I guess the argument, the response to that is, well, you can't have a Secretary of State who is who is the person getting all the security requests from all 270 American ambassadors, and the response back would be, well, this isn't just any ambassador.
Yeah, that's why I said the hottest of hot zones.
Yeah. I agree. I don't disagree, but I mean, it's a fair point.
Right. The other thing that we're reading this morning, I've seen it in a couple of places. I don't know if it's crossed your desk yet, and that is that apparently Democrats are now weighing whether or not they want to just come out of the committee, just walk away. And it would seem to me that if they do that, it sort of proves the point that the only reason they were in it in the first place was to sort of run interference for Secretary Clinton.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that yesterday we saw a lot of questions on both sides that were very partisan, and some of them from the Republican side seemed to be, really based on, just embarrassing her one way or another, for being political, for wanting good press, for whatever. I'm not saying all the questions, but some of the questions. And on the other side, you had the Democratic questions, which are, and obviously in some cases were, silly on the other side, to the point of, like, tell us why you're so awesome, or tell us why these hearings are ridiculous, or that sort of thing. And the Democrats on the committee, they spent a lot of time trying to undermine the committee itself.
Yeah, the existence
and
of it.
run interference for Clinton, and she really didn't need to do anything to assail the committee because her allies on the committee were doing it for her.
Jake Tapper's our guest, and we mentioned that on this Sunday State of the Union, you're going to have Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders, and Marco Rubio. I've noticed on the lead, Jake, that like me, you like to really give extra emphasis to those early primary state polls. The national polls tell you one thing, but these early primary state polls of likely voters are really important. And what do you make of this latest Iowa poll that shows Carson in the lead by 9 points over Donald Trump?
Yeah, this new Des Moines Register poll, it's fascinating. It's the second Iowa poll in the last day or so showing Carson ahead of Trump in Iowa. Really interesting. It's the first time we've seen anybody pass Trump in any of these polls, national or local or statewide. It certainly will be something I ask him about. It'll be interesting to see, given that Trump, he characterizes himself as somebody who counter-punches but doesn't punch. He doesn't go after people unless they attack him first. Mm-hmm. And Ben Carson, with the exception of about a month ago when he made some comments about Trump not being a religious person the way he is, Ben Carson has pretty much stayed away from attacking Trump. So we'll have to see, because I don't see how, without some contrast, it doesn't have to be a personal, nasty attack, but without some contrast as to why he'd be better, I don't see how Trump overtakes Carson back in Iowa.
Well, and speaking of that faith-based argument that Ben Carson made, is that sort of your analysis here, that Ben Carson is getting that, Rick Santorum got the faith-based vote in Iowa and ended up winning the caucus last time, and before that, of course, Mike Huckabee, Pat Robertson has done well in that state. There is a large contingent of voters that are caucus goers in Iowa who do sort of migrate toward the person who stresses faith.
Yeah, I mean, I have to dive a little bit more into the polls, but from what I understand from one of my producers, that is one of the reasons why Carson is doing so well, that he is catching fire with the evangelical Christian base in Iowa, which is obviously a very sizable block, and as you rightly point out, it's one of the reasons why people like Huckabee and Santorum were able to do well in the past, and that's certainly worth exploring. And it's also worth noting that is the one criticism that Carson has made of Trump. Is that Trump is not a devout Christian the way that he is, and a few weeks later, there you go. Some devout Christians in Iowa hearing that message.
All right, we're going to leave it right there, and good look. We'll be definitely watching and see how the show goes with Donald on there. Thanks a lot, Jay.
Good luck, Jake.
Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
All right, same to you.